Pro-choice versus pro-life, Roe versus Wade, family member versus family member, friend versus friend. I have some thoughts. So we're here today filming several other videos for the channel. A couple days ago, Roe versus Wade was overturned. My social media is flooded with people having angry conversations from both sides of this issue. And you see it on the news, and there's just a lot of vitriol, and people are losing friendships and relationships over this, right? Unfriend me, unfollow me. We used to be friends, I used to love you, and then I realized you had this position on this issue, and now I think you're a monster, and I can't associate with you anymore. There's a lot of this going around. And honestly, I was not going to touch this. I was like, even for me, this is too hot of an issue to even come close to, because people have such passionate feelings about it. Understandably, it is a moral issue. No matter what side you are on, it is a question of right or wrong. And so I wasn't going to touch this, because no matter what I say, this is just a minefield. And I would like Mended Light to continue into the future. So I wasn't going to even go there. I've had a change of heart, though, because I can help. I can help with the discussion. I'm not an expert on reproductive rights. I'm not an expert on the experience of women. I'm not an expert on political discourse. I'm not an expert on any of these things. And some people would say, well, you can still take a moral stand on the issue. And yes, I can. But that's not what I'm going to do here today. What I am an expert on is how to have healthy conversations about contentious issues. What I am an expert on is how do we build bridges where it seems like bridges can't be built. The fact is that this and gun control versus gun rights and other issues are literally tearing us apart, to the point where we're not that far removed from neighbor rising up against neighbor, friend against friend, family member against family member. Like, so far, it's not very physically violent as a general rule on these issues. I mean, obviously violence is happening, but most of us, this is verbal, psychological violence. And the reason is that because it's a moral issue, we tend to believe no matter what side we're on, my side is the right side, therefore we are the good guys, those of us who see the world this way. And those who see it a different way, they're on the wrong moral side of the issue, therefore they're the bad guys. And then it becomes war. And it becomes this sort of righteous fury and this righteous indignation. I can't relate to you if you want to kill babies. I can't relate to you if you want to take away a woman's right to her body. And we just act like that is it. And some would say, well, yes, at its core, that's what it boils down to. But the fact is, there's no room for nuance there. There's no room for understanding. There's no room for where are you coming from. So I want to give several of what I would call, these are rules for just resolving conflict in general that I'm going to apply to political discourse in our country, and specifically to pro-choice versus pro-life, this debate. The first thing to recognize is that people arrive where they arrive in their moral decision-making based on their experience, based on what they've been exposed to, what they've learned, and what they've gone through. And by and large, that is very different from what you've experienced, learned, been exposed to, or gone through. That people believe that their position is right for a reason, and it's not because they're evil or stupid. Sometimes it's because they have pundits on the news or in social media or amongst their friends and family who are stripping away all the nuance and just leaving it as if it's just this versus this. The fact is, most people who are pro-choice aren't saying, hey, have sex without consequences and just kill all the babies, whee! And they're not just Wicked Witch of the West people who that's what they're all about. They're thinking, what if I'm a victim of rape? What if I'm a victim of incest? What if I get pregnant and I grew up in an abusive home and I don't know that I could give this child a home where they will be loved? What if I get pregnant and I can't financially provide for this child and they're going to grow up destitute, without opportunity? And then you say, well, give the child up for adoption. What if this child that is from me goes to a home where they'll be abused, goes to a home where they'll be raped or molested, or with things that I've been through? Now, I'm not saying this is like the copy and paste circumstance. I'm just looking at an example. What if my life is in danger from the pregnancy? What if my health is in danger? What if I risk being shunned, judged, scorned for getting pregnant out of wedlock in my circle, right? And there's a million things. Most people who I know who are pro-choice are looking at all this nuance, and they're not saying it's good to kill babies. They're saying there's a lot going on here, and we need to consider all of it. Most people I know who are pro-life aren't saying no abortions, period, for no reason whatsoever. There are extremists on both sides. Most people I know who are pro-life, most people who say I value the sanctity of this life, this is a human being, even at conception. Most of them are willing to make concessions and say there are times when abortion is necessary or appropriate. And of course, this is just people I know, but I know a lot of people in a lot of different walks of life. And getting my thumb on the pulse of the nation, I feel like most people are more in the middle. And they recognize that there's, and maybe I'm naively optimistic when I say that. Maybe more people are out here. But we're shouting at each other, and we're not listening to each other, and we're vilifying each other. And that's keeping us from understanding, why do you see things the way that you see things? In our nation and in the world, we set up laws, and the people and the elected officials, they make the decision, and we have legal recourse if we don't like the decisions that are made, right? And if there's corruption in high places, then we start by rooting that out. So the first thing is that most people arrive at their moral decision making from a place of experience, and their experience is not your experience, and their perspective is not your perspective. And you may say, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong. But the fact is, we have to live together. We have to work together. And we have to make room for different views and different perspectives as we find a way forward together. And that's on all the issues. And we can't do that when we boil the issues down to oversimplified sound bites and then vilify and attack one another. The next thing to keep in mind is that almost every issue is complex. We want it to be simple, but it's not. And we have to make room for nuance, and we have to make room to hear each other, which is the third thing. I've grown in my life so much by what John Gottman calls accepting influence. Accepting influence means that you hear the experience, perspective, understanding, and wisdom of another person, and you allow yourself to be moved by it. You approach people with an open mind, willing to have your perspective shifted in some ways. There are moral issues that I hold my ground on. I think that's true for all of us. There are moral issues that we hold our ground on, but how we hold our ground can change with compassion. How we hold our ground can change based on our understanding of where another person is coming from. And in some areas, maybe we decide not to hold our ground anymore. That the ground that we were holding was based on a limited perspective. That it was based on just one viewpoint, just one experience, and that when we take that of others into account, that we need to grow beyond and stand our ground in a different way or on a different issue. I'm being intentionally vague with all of this because it is not my purpose today to project onto you, here's the ground that you should stand, here's the position that you should take, but rather, here's how we should be having these conversations. Do not let the people on the news who won't even let each other finish a sentence, right? They invite a guest on their show just so they can railroad them and stomp all over them, and then their fans can say, yeah, you really stuck it to the bad guy. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, both sides do this. Don't let those people be your role models. That's not how to have these conversations. Understanding, compassion, standing our ground when necessary, but accepting influence as well, to make concessions, to make compromises, to build bridges, to meet in the middle, is our way forward on this and on many, many other issues. It's hard when you're trying to take a stand on something that you believe is right, because you don't want to listen to the other side, because you think it's the devil's tongue, right? That they're going to tell you something that is going to sound good, but is actually going to pull you away from what's true. Trust in your own ability to discern right and wrong enough to hear them out. Trust in your own ability to make shifts in perspective, to make changes, to grow and evolve, and to stand firm when you need to actually listen to your neighbor instead of just shutting them down We're a nation full of unfriend me, unfollow me, block me. I'm blocking you. I'm unfriending you. I'm not going to let you finish your sentence. Or I'll let you finish your sentence, then I'm going to tell you how wrong you are. Instead of making sure that I actually understood what you're really trying to say, instead of how I'm interpreting your words. We're not taking the time to do that. And as long as we do that, it's going to keep being an ugly mess out there. And that's not good for anybody. I know my psychology, my mental health is affected by all the garbage, by all the hate, by all the bitterness and anger and vilification. Straight up, I have conservative friends. Straight up, I have liberal friends. Straight up, atheist friends, religious friends, straight friends, gay friends. You know what the common thread is? They're all pretty decent. They're all good. They're all trying to do the right thing, even if they see the world differently. We can learn from each other, so let's give it a shot. What difficult conversations have you had to have that you feel like you navigated in a really good way, or that blew up in your face, and what did you learn from that? Let us know in the comments below. Speaking of getting real and having difficult conversations, some parents regret having their kids. And I'm not talking like in the moment. I think every parent like regrets it in the moment. I don't regret it overall. I love my kids. I adore my kids. There are moments where I'm like, oh, why? But there are people for whom they feel like parenthood was a mistake. So what would I say to them? Here are my thoughts right here. You're welcome. Now you know what you're doing for the next 10 minutes. It's already planned out for you. Just click. Clickety click.